Hi everyone, it's Evangeline, and today we have the Saris MHS 2+1 base with the Duo Trays kit. This is going to create a 2-bike platform rack, probably one of my favorite kits within the MHS series because this has a really high weight capacity and a lot of versatility for your different bikes. We're going to take a look at some of its different features, some of its pros, some of its cons. We're going to review this bike rack, but right off the bat, I'd like to say that one of my favorite things about it is that this is actually motorhome approved for electric bikes too. Let's go. Now, I've worked with a lot of 2-bike platform racks, so the main question is what makes this one different from the others? Well, there's 3 main features we're going to be taking a look at. The first feature is that this is going to be modular. The second is that it's going to be very sturdy with its extra weight capacity and its design. And then the third main feature is that it's a dual wheel mount rack, plus one of the sturdiest of the dual wheel mount racks that I've seen. So let's start there. What types of bikes are you carrying? The Saris MHS Duo Tray has a weight capacity of up to 100 pounds when used with the 2+1 base. On other bases, it has a weight capacity of 80 pounds in the first 2 positions and then 35 pounds after that. This is compatible with a wheelbase of up to 50 inches and it can fit tire sizes of up to 5 inches wide. So for those bikes that have those longer and larger frames, this is going to work well. Plus, with this being a dual wheel mount rack, that means there's 0 frame contact. You're holding everything down by the front and the rear wheels. So if you have a carbon fiber frame bike like this and you don't want to scratch it up, or let's say you have a step-through bike and you don't want to have to get an adapter, well, you don't need to. The frames are contact-free. To protect your bikes when they are loaded onto the rack, you do have these integrated cable locks, and you have just enough length in the cable locks to wrap around your frame as well as your front wheel. With your base, you do get extra lock cores, so don't forget to switch those lock cores out with the cores on your Duo trays. That way you can keep everything secured, just like that. Now, I do recommend that you take these cable locks out whenever you start driving, just to avoid that extra friction and contact on your bikes. So you usually have your bikes locked up when you're parked somewhere. But also, when you are parked, well, what if you need to get access into your hatch real quick, or maybe you bought some groceries and you put those away? Well, this rack can tilt away. There is this large handle as well as the stopper underneath. That's going to be very important, especially when you have this on lower vehicles and if you have heavier bikes. Even though this rack hit the ground, we still are able to open up our hatch and get access into our cargo area. If you have a vehicle with a trunk or a truck with a tailgate that needs to lower, this will help out a lot with getting that access without having to take your bikes off. Now, if you want to enjoy that full tilt of the bike rack, I do recommend using this on a vehicle that has a higher hitch, as well as double check that you have a higher tongue weight capacity. At least 10 inches off the ground would be awesome. Plus, if you're planning on using this in order to carry extra heavy electric bikes, then that's going to be 160 pounds of bike weight, plus the weight of the rack, which is around 60 pounds. So having a good amount of weight capacity for your hitch receiver is ideal. Weight capacity is important because then you know that you'll have less sag when you have those heavier bikes on your car. Plus, if you are carrying around 2 bikes and it does get a little hefty, there's 2 options here. 1 is to have a friend help you out when loading and unloading bikes. 2 is go ahead and take a look at the loading ramp if you need that added on to your bike rack. That will be helpful when you have this on vehicles that sit a bit higher up. In our case here, we don't need that to unload our bikes. To unload, start at the rear wheel strap. Press that lever, and then you can lift the strap up and out. And this can also tuck into its cradle. To release the cradles, you do have this lever on each mount. And here's where I learned a trick. Ideally, you don't want to hold it like this because then you might pinch the skin of your hand when pulling on the lever. Plus, with how tight that mount is up against your wheels, you'll find it pretty tricky to pull that lever anyways. So what I do is I push in on that mount against the wheel. That releases that tension on the lever, and then I can take it out. We're gonna lower this all the way down to the ground to make it easier to roll the bike down. So here you can see how this is pretty easy to do with our lighter mountain bikes, but definitely might be trickier with your heavy electric bikes. Check out our test fit videos here at eTrailer, where we show the MHS on different vehicles so you can see how it will fit on yours. A lot of dual wheel mount racks do have a good bit of movement with them, but in the case of our MHS Duo trays, it's very solid. You can see that as it goes over different bumps here on our test course, that everything stays in place, whether we have our side to side or our up and down movement. Plus, during our slalom, when we make those sharp turns, that sway holds up really well, very minimal movement of the rack. Even with our quick stops, there might be a little bit of up and down with how the base is designed, but very solid in the hitch receiver. And this is how the Saris MHS looks like on a motorhome. Remember, in the MHS series, this configuration is going to be the best one rated for motorhome use because you have that 2+1 base that fits in that 2-inch hitch receiver, and because the Duo trays have that extra bulk to them, this kit will be able to stand up to the extra movement that you're going to have behind your motorhome just because it sits so far away from your rear axle. You're still going to have the same weight capacity, which is awesome compared to other RV rated bike racks. With the bikes off, this is what the Duo tray looks like. These are going to be massive trays, and that's what adds to the sturdiness you saw on the test course. The main things here are going to be your front wheel chock as well as your rear wheel strap. Those support the cradles in holding the front and the rear of your bike in. If you did need to make your adjustments though, that's where I've noticed that there's a little bit of work that you have to put into this rack. For example, I need to adjust our mount from the 29-inch tire size down to a bike that has fenders. So I'm rotating this bolt here. Once that bolt is loosened, you can then completely remove it. There we go. And we're gonna slide this up and down the mast to whichever hole makes the most sense for our bike. Once you've figured that out, you just line it back up with the hole. It can get a little tricky, but then once you find it, you can then push that bolt back in. Make sure it seats on both sides, and then thread it back down. As much extra work as that is, it does tie back into their main concept of being a very sturdy rack. Everything is designed to add that extra grip as well as protection of your bikes whenever you transport them. I don't know if you noticed earlier, but there's something else that's a little interesting with how these chocks are designed. Not only is the existence of the chocks a little different, it's the way we have our trays facing that is a bit unique too. So we have our front wheel facing the passenger side on this side, then we have the front wheel facing the driver's side. A little bit different compared to most platform racks. Yes, you can adjust it if you want, but Saris recommends it in this orientation because of the different clearances you're going to experience with a 2+1 base. First is the clearance from your hitch to your bike rack. So we measure from the center of the hitch pin hole to the closest point of the tray, and that's going to be 16 inches away. The closest point of the rack is going to be over here at 17 inches. And then the next measurement is going to be the distance this adds to the back of your car. So again, center of the hitch pin hole to where that handle is, and that's going to be 39 inches and a half. These measurements are important to help you figure out, do you have enough space for your bike's handlebars with your vehicle, and then do you have enough space for your bike rack with your vehicle if you have a small garage or need to park into a tight spot. So this orientation does seem a little different compared to other racks because you're usually used to having the chains not facing the vehicle, but since there's so much space there, it's fine. There's also not much space between the trays, about 12 1/4 inches between both duo trays, so this will help save on space as well. And if you really need to, you can go ahead and flip the trays around, or if you find that your add-on needs to be faced a different way, that's some adjustments that you can make too. To move your trays, you do have to loosen the single bolt that is holding the collar of the tray in place. So go ahead and grab your security tool included with your tray. And this is gonna have a special cutout in it. It is gonna be a Torx key or Torx wrench. And then we're gonna use this to loosen our collar. Loosen it to where you can push this bolt out of its holder in the collar. And then this will allow you to take the entire duo tray out of its slot on the base. Now usually you won't do this while the rack is folded up against your car, but this is going to be the easiest way to show it. And then if you switch the tray around, you can then move it back into place just like that. It doesn't really matter which direction that collar faces, but some people like both of the collars facing the same way to make it easier to tighten down. In all reality, you really only should need to install these once. Once they're in place, they're strong, they're stable, there isn't much of a reason to have to take them out and switch them around, because in the configuration I showed you, that's gonna be versatile for most bikes. The next time you'd be working with those collars is when you're using or replacing those trays with another type of tray for your MHS series. So one option is you can replace both duo trays with a single cargo basket, and you can also get the Uno trays, or in our case here, the Uno add-on. Now if you're curious about the add-on, definitely check that one out here at etrailer. I go into depth on how to install it and all that fun stuff in its own video. Now back to our bike rack kit. Notice how I had it in the compact position. Your duo trays are gonna be very large. They're gonna take up a lot of room. So while you would prefer to have it in the upright compact position, in case your vehicle has a bit going on in its hatch, its bumper, or its hitch, now this is a perfectly acceptable way to carry your rack too. That upright position though is how you'll usually have it stored in your garage or in your shed. This is really hefty with those two duo trays. So if you needed to maneuver this around, I highly recommend having a person help you out, or just being careful with how it all installs. With it out of the hitch, this is a good time to show how that anti-rattle method works. This is the bolt included with your rack. This is designed to go into the shank and hitch, and then you tighten it down. There is a thread in there. So when you tighten down that bolt, this will push up on that block, so that way not only do you have that pressure from side to side, but you also have that up and down rattle being removed. Now to tighten this down, I do recommend grabbing a 5/8 inch wrench or socket. This is my own for my toolbox. This will make it a lot easier if you get a ratchet wrench to tighten that bolt down. So the process of carrying this around and installing it into the hitch receiver is probably my least favorite thing about the bike rack. But it's worth it because then you have that super sturdy system. One of the video people here at etrailer mentioned that this seems very over-engineered, and I kind of agree with them. They really put a lot of work and material into this rack. It's made of steel for most of it. We have that black powder coat finish. You have that very strong and sturdy look to the rack. When you drive down the highway, you do get a good amount of looks. Believe me, I know. And all in all, it works very well to carry those bikes safely and securely, as long as you can get it into your hitch and get the bikes onto the rack. So that's going to be the general idea of the Saris MHS 2-bike duo tray configuration. If you're looking for other options for you, maybe you like the concept of modularity, or you like the concept of really heavy weight capacity, I'd recommend taking a look at the Inno Tire Hold HD. And for modularity, the Inno Quick Base system with the Tire Hold add-on. Those are gonna be different types of bike racks. You have that same dual wheel mount design, same 80-pound weight capacity, which is a different method of modularity. What that bike rack does not have, though, is the compatibility with motorhomes. This is going to be a lot sturdier and a lot less movement of the rack in the hitch receiver, meaning it can hold up to the stresses of being behind a motorhome and still carrying those heavy electric bikes. So that's going to be the main differentiator there. All in all, this is going to make for a very sturdy rack for your bikes. Here on our website, this is available as a full kit with the trays and the base fully included, but if you want to mix and match, that's an option too. You can find any of the individual parts separately on our site, whether you want the duo tray matched with an Uno tray, or if you want the basket, or if you just want the base. You can go ahead and check those out here at eTrailer. But right now, this was a look at the Saris MHS 2+1 base with the 2 duo trays, the kit for your extra heavy electric bikes at etrailer.com. My name's Evangeline, and I hope you enjoy the journey.